Chapter 3605. Finally, when the night was at its darkest, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three boarded a small boat and returned to the island. Seeing that the four of them had finally returned, many cultivators breathed a sigh of relief. Previously, they had even thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three would fight until dawn. Fortunately, the situation was not as exaggerated as they had imagined. The four of them have finally returned. It seems that the yuan power in their bodies has been exhausted. After fighting for such a long time, it is indeed time for them to return. Even if they have only fought until now, the density of their yuan power has completely surpassed ours. If possible, I really want to know how they usually cultivate and why they are so much stronger than us. Quite a number of cultivators nodded their heads one after another when these words were spoken. If there was only one person in this four-man group who was strong, it could be said that his talent was extraordinary. However, since all four of them were so strong, it was likely that it had a lot to do with their cultivation method. Every genius cultivator was not only talented, but their cultivation methods were also different. After all, none of the cultivators present were mediocre to have reached this stage. However, the difference was still so obvious, so it must be related to their cultivation method. Ziren sat on the ground. His elegant and handsome face was now filled with a thick gloominess. I never thought that I would lose to you in the end. Beichen, your performance today is a little abnormal. Just thinking about the previous situation, Ziren was speechless. Thinking back to when he had killed more than 200 monsters, Beichen had surpassed him by a few dozen. Later on, he increased his hunting speed. However, he never thought that Beichen would be ahead of him by a whole 1,000 monsters. 1,000 monsters. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, Ziren would not have dared to believe this result. Even if Beichen was stronger than him, it should not be by this much. A total of 5,000 monsters, Beichen had killed 1,000 more than him. This gap was too big. Beichen glanced at Ziren, a devilish smile on his picturesque face. I already told you not to compete with me. This result is not surprising. Even if you are stronger than me, when we were training together a few days ago, you were not this much stronger than me. Ziren was a little speechless. He swore that Beichen's strength this time was definitely much stronger than before. Not only did he leave him in the dust, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying were also left in the dust. The four of them were obviously at the same cultivation level, but Beichen was so much faster than them. This was the problem. Looking at Ziren's confused expression, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but chuckle. Beichen has already touched the bottleneck of the 6th level of the Purple Realm. If all goes well, he will break through in a few days. You will definitely lose if you compete with him. Even if they were both at the 5th level of the Purple Realm, a cultivator who had touched the bottleneck and a cultivator who was in the middle were completely different. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, when Ziren finally understood, he stared at Beichen with wide eyes. So this is the problem. You hid it too deeply. Beichen spread his hands. I did not hide it. It was you who did not notice. Chapter 3606. When Ziren looked dispirited as he sighed, ever since we were young, I've only surpassed your cultivation during the period when your cultivation speed was suppressed. Now that I've been caught up, I feel that I won't have any chance to surpass you in the future. Following Ziren's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but chuckle. I think you are right. I'm afraid it will be like this in the future. Shangguan Yingying patted Ziren's shoulder and comforted. Before Beichen transformed into the body of destiny, you had never been able to surpass him. Now Beichen's physique is one of the most suitable physiques for cultivation. I'm afraid it will be impossible for you to surpass him in the future. Ziren pretended to be sad and leaned on Shangguan Yingying's shoulder. Sigh, I'm so sad. But maybe I will change into a heaven-defying physique in the future. Then there is a chance for me to make a comeback. Otherwise, I can only be second to Beichen for the rest of my life. Ziren, that is not necessarily the case, Shangguan Yingying said slowly. Hearing this, Ziren's eyes lit up. Yingying, do you believe that I still have a chance to win? Shangguan Yingying shook her head. You said that you will always be second, but I don't think that is necessarily the case. With Hong Zhuang here, you may go from second to third. Haha. Shangguan Yingying covered the corner of her mouth and snickered. So if you don't work hard to cultivate, you may become fourth. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three laughed and talked. Some of the surrounding cultivators also heard their conversation, but they were completely speechless. Killed them all? 5,000 demonic beasts, they actually killed them all in a single day? For a moment, everyone couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Not many people in the entire Penglai Palace could achieve such a result. It turned out that they didn't come back to rest because their primary energy was exhausted, but because they had completed the hunting mission of 5,000 monsters. This meant that their primary energy was not exhausted yet. Suddenly, everyone couldn't help but curse in a low voice. Even if their strength was extraordinary, it shouldn't be so exaggerated. However, no one knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were completely used to being abused. Whether it was the utilization of their primary energy or their endurance, it was much better than before. After all, it was the best way to improve their strength in a life-and-death situation. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze turned to Ao Lingxiao in the distance. She had noticed that Ao Lingxiao had been watching them during the battle. But when they finished their mission, Ao Lingxiao had already left. In their line of sight, Ao Lingxiao was still alone in the darkness. He seemed out of place with the team around him. There were clearly many people around, but he gave off the feeling that he was the only one here. Wife, what are you looking at? Di Beichen was just about to cultivate to recover his primary energy when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang looking in another direction. He couldn't help but ask. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze, he also saw Ao Lingxiao alone in the distance. Are you thinking about why he is talking to us? Bailey Hongzhuang's birthday celebration, although I don't know the reason, I feel that he is also a person with a story. Chapter 3607. Although everyone's comments about him aren't good, I have a feeling that this guy has a gentleman's heart under his unrestrained appearance. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her head slightly and saw Di Beichen's confident black eyes. Her lips slowly curled into a bright smile. Your intuition has always been accurate. Nighttime was always a nightmare for the inner palace disciples. Skeletons would appear, liches would chant, and generals would attack. The slightest carelessness would cost them their lives. However, as inner palace disciples, they had no choice but to appear here to increase their cultivation and for the stability of the Shengxian continent. Big brother, how are you? Renzime looked at Ren Ziheng worriedly. Previously, Ren Ziheng had fought the skeleton general alone. The skeleton general was simply too powerful. Even though Ren Ziheng had used all his strength, there were still many wounds on his body. At that time, she had tried her best to help Ren Ziheng, but she had been surrounded by the skeleton army. She could only watch as Ren Ziheng was alone and helpless. Ren Ziheng shook his head and looked at his right hand that was almost broken. At that moment, only a few bones were connected to his flesh. It was as if the slightest pull would completely separate it from his body. The power of darkness lingered on the wound, causing it to show no signs of healing. On the contrary, it was constantly worsening. Don't worry, I'm fine. Ren Ziheng comforted Ren Zime. However, looking at Ren Ziheng's pale face, his words were not convincing at all. Damn it, ordinary healing medicine is completely useless. Ren Zime could not help but curse. The sky was already bright, but Ren Ziheng's injuries were very serious. If they did not stop the bleeding soon, the situation would become very bad. Chu Jinfeng's face was also very ugly. It's a pity that we didn't manage to get the healing medicine from the demonic training tower this time. This is really bad. At that moment, Ren Zime suddenly thought of something and said, That's right, Didn't junior sister Bailey give us some healing medicine before we set off? She said that the healing medicine is very effective. Why don't we try it? Hearing Rinzimei's words, Chu Jinfeng felt a little helpless. Junior sister Bailey is so young, and the healing medicine was personally made by her. I'm afraid the effects won't be very good, right? So far, apart from the healing medicine that the demonic training tower had brought out, none of the other healing medicines had any effect on the dark energy. If it was that easy to concoct, the doctors and alchemists of the 100 Flowers Gate would have concocted it long ago. Why would they wait until now? Renzime sighed. Her expression was a little ugly. But we have no other way now except for this method. Let's give it a try. Then let's give it a try, Chu Jinfeng said. In the next moment, Renzime immediately took out the medicine that Bailey Hongzhuang had given her and sprinkled it on Renziheng's wound. Renzime's eyes were fixed on Renziheng's wound. Although she knew that it was unlikely to work, she still had a glimmer of hope in her heart. What if it was true? What if there was a miracle? Although the probability of this happening was shockingly small, she was still looking forward to it. However, it didn't take long for the following scene to stun everyone. Chapter 3608. Seeing this, Renzime and the others could not help but hold their breaths as they stared fixedly at Renzixing's wound. They could not help but wonder if their eyes were playing tricks on them. This healing medicine actually had a restraining effect on the dark energy. However, when they saw the same look of shock in the other party's eyes, they knew that their eyes were not playing tricks on them. The medicine was truly effective. The wound is actually healing. Renzime cried out in shock as she stared at Renziheng's wound in astonishment. Even though she had been holding on to a sliver of hope, she knew very well that this was basically impossible. However, this was actually happening right now. The dark energy is fading away. Based on the speed of its fading, it seems to be much more effective than the healing medicine from the Devil Training Tower. Chu Jinfeng widened his eyes as his face filled with disbelief. That's right, the effect is indeed much better than the healing medicine from before. I can feel my wound healing and the pain is also showing signs of lessening. A sense of joy appeared on Renziheng's face. His wound was very serious. If he did not find a way to deal with the dark energy as soon as possible, he could very well lose too much blood and become seriously injured or even die. Even though he had been comforting Renzime, his heart was still very pessimistic. He never thought that such a turn of events would appear just as he was on the brink of death. How could he not be overjoyed? I never thought that junior sister Bailey's healing medicine would be so effective. This is simply too shocking. Renzime could not help but stare blankly. Her medical skills are just too amazing. Chu Jinfeng nodded as his expression filled with joy. Indeed, when she had first mentioned it, I did not believe her at all. I only thought that she was being too full of herself. After all, it's simply too difficult to develop a healing medicine that can overcome the dark energy. I never thought that junior sister Bailey's healing medicine would actually have such an effect. This means that her medical skills are just too exquisite. This is really unexpected. It seems that we've underestimated junior sister Bailey. Her medical skills are not just average. Renziheng slowly said. I remember the last time they accidentally came to the training ground, junior sister Bailey had been studying our wounds. At that time, I didn't take it to heart, but now it seems that she did have some insights from her research, so she went back and concocted this healing medicine. Hearing Renziheng's words, Renzime and Chu Jinfeng both nodded. You're right. We didn't take it to heart before, but it turns out that it's all true. At this moment, Renziheng and the other two looked at the healing medicine in their hands in a completely different light. Previously, when Bailey Hongzhuang had given them the healing medicine, they hadn't thought much of it. It was only because they didn't want to go against Bailey Hongzhuang's wishes that they reluctantly accepted it. They hadn't thought that this healing medicine would be such a heaven-defying treasure. In this training ground, It was completely their life-saving method. Now that I think about it, we were a little too rude when junior sister Bailey handed us the healing medicine. Renzime's expression was a little awkward. Next time when we go back, we must properly thank junior sister Bailey. Chapter 3609. For a time, Bailey Hongzhuang's position in the hearts of Renziheng and the others had completely changed. In terms of medical skills, Bailey Hongzhuang had already surpassed many famous doctors. Once Bailey Hongzhuang took out this healing medicine, the sensation it would cause could be imagined. This was a healing medicine that was even more amazing than the one from the Mo refining tower. After using the healing medicine, Renziheng's injuries immediately improved. The dark power gradually faded away. Although it had not completely disappeared, the damage it had done to the wounds had decreased. The wounds gradually healed. As long as this continued, Renziheng's life would not be in danger. He would be able to recover in a little more time. This scene did not escape the eyes of the other cultivators. After yesterday's battle, everyone believed that Renziheng's life would be lost. So, many people paid attention to him and felt sorry for him. Suddenly, everyone saw Renzime take out a bottle of healing medicine. Renziheng's injuries, which were already extremely bad, suddenly began to improve. A touch of color gradually appeared on his pale face. This scene completely exceeded everyone's expectations. Suddenly, everyone's eyes lit up as they looked at the healing medicine in Renzime's hand. Is the healing medicine that Renzime took out the same as the one from the demonic tower? I don't think so. This time, the Penglai Palace sold very little healing medicine. They were all sold out long ago. When Renzime returned to the inner palace, the healing medicine was already gone. If I am not wrong, this healing medicine seems to be more effective than the other healing medicine. Renziheng's injuries are so serious. Even with the healing medicine from the demonic tower, he will not be able to recover in a short time. But now, the dark power in Renziheng's wounds has clearly decreased. This is not right. Everyone's gazes fell on Renziheng and the other two. They were almost certain that the other party had used a completely different kind of healing medicine. Moreover, this healing medicine's effects were extraordinarily good. If they could have this kind of healing medicine, then their survival in the training ground would be greatly increased. Although the dark power could not be completely eliminated, it could be suppressed so much that it would not affect them much. Thinking of this, some of the cultivators who had a good relationship with Renziheng and the others approached. Renzime, what medicine did you use just now? Jing Tianlang walked over to Renzime's side. Renziheng's injuries are so serious, but after using the medicine, he seems to have improved a lot. As soon as Jing Tianlang finished speaking, the other cultivators started asking questions one after another. Yeah, what kind of medicine is this? I don't think we've met before. Right now, the healing medicine sold by the Magic Refining Tower is very popular. It's not easy to buy it unless we go outside to buy it. However, we don't have the time. Renzime, if you have better healing medicine, don't hide it. After all, we're all teammates. We can buy some next time. That's right. The Inner Palace disciples are all one family. Just tell us. Realizing that everyone's attention had fallen upon them, the faces of Renzime's team of three stiffened. They could not stop themselves from exchanging glances, complicated looks on their faces. Chapter 3610. However, none of them had expected the medicine to be so effective. It had completely exceeded their expectations. As a result, the situation became even more complicated. Everyone had discovered the uniqueness of the medicine and began to ask them about it. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had given them the medicine. Apart from that, Bailey Hongzhuang did not seem to have told anyone else about it. If they told everyone that the medicine was made by Bailey Hongzhuang, who knew if it would cause trouble for Bailey Hongzhuang? The fact that Bailey Hongzhuang had given them the medicine proved that she truly treated them as good friends. After all, once the effects of the medicine were made known, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Now that she had told them about it without telling anyone else, they could not betray her trust in them. Even if they wanted to tell anyone, they had to obtain Bailey Hongzhuang's permission first. Otherwise, they could not bring unnecessary trouble to Bailey Hongzhuang. After all, the greater the benefit, the more attention it would attract. Perhaps some people with dark intentions would want to take the medicine for themselves. As a result, Ren Zimei and the others only glanced at each other and made a decision. Before they obtained Bailey Hongzhuang's permission, they would not tell anyone about it. We only obtained the medicine by chance. We had no idea that it would be effective at all. We're just trying our best, Ren Zimei said slowly. Jing Tianlang and the others could not help but frown when they heard Ren Zimei's words. They clearly did not believe her. Ren Zimei, we're good friends no matter what. We've fought side by side many times over the years. You really shouldn't keep something good to yourself, right? That's right. Even if you tell us where the medicine came from, it won't cause any harm to you. Everyone frowned, and some reluctance appeared on their faces. Clearly, they did not believe Ren Zimei's explanation. Without a doubt, she was deliberately hiding it from them. Looking at everyone's reaction, Ren Zimei and the other two felt somewhat helpless. They knew all too well just how much everyone wanted this healing medicine that could restrain the power of darkness. As long as such a medicine appeared, no one would give it up. For a time, they felt extremely depressed. If he were to reveal the origin of the medicine, he would undoubtedly be letting down Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. But if he didn't say anything, he was afraid that everyone would be estranged from them. If they had known earlier, they would have believed Bailey Hongzhuang's words and paid more attention when using the healing medicine. Then, this situation wouldn't have happened. However, it was useless to think about it now. It's not that we don't want to tell you. It's just that we came across this healing medicine by chance. We really don't know where it came from. Ren Ziheng said slowly, if I had known in advance that this healing medicine was so effective, I would have used it when I was injured. Why would I wait until I was on the brink of death to give it a try? Besides, if we really don't want to tell you, we can't possibly use this healing medicine in public. Wouldn't that be asking for trouble? Chapter 36:11. If Ren Zimei said that she didn't know before, everyone didn't believe it, but at this moment, hearing Ren Ziheng's explanation, everyone gradually believed it. Because they clearly noticed that when Ren Ziheng and the other two discovered the effect of the healing medicine, they also showed a surprised expression. It could be seen that they didn't know anything about this situation before. Then where did you get this healing medicine? Jing Tianlang couldn't help but ask. When we returned to the inner hall, we went to the restaurant of Penglai Island to eat. During the meal, we met a person who called himself a doctor. We had a good chat, so he gave us some healing medicine, saying that the effect was excellent. However, we saw that the other party was very young, so we didn't believe what he said at all. We just thought that he was blowing his own trumpet. For the sake of the other party's face, we still accepted the healing medicine, but no one took it seriously. Just now, because my injury was too serious, ordinary healing medicine had no effect. Ren Zimei suddenly thought of this healing medicine, so we wanted to give it a try. I just didn't expect that what the young doctor said was actually true. The effect of this healing medicine is so good, and it can even restrain the dark power. It's really surprising. Ren Ziheng told the truth half-truthfully. He did get this healing medicine from the hands of a young doctor. He also got it when he was eating in the restaurant, but this person was also their Penglai Palace's disciple. Listening to Ren Ziheng's words, everyone couldn't help but look at each other. Although there were still some doubts in their hearts, they felt that what he said might be true. So that's how it is. I don't know which doctor has such superb medical skills. You didn't contact him after that? Everyone was still a little unwilling. If they could know this doctor, then their life-saving means in this place in the future would be strengthened a lot. Ren Ziheng shook his head regretfully. At that time, we just happened to meet and had a good chat. He gave us some healing medicine, and we didn't think that he would be so powerful, so we didn't take it seriously. If I knew this, I would definitely ask where he lived, but now I really don't know where to find him. I only hope that I can meet him again next time in the restaurant of Penglai Palace. Chu Jinfeng sighed. You really can't judge a book by its cover. If that doctor wasn't so young, we wouldn't have ignored him. We really missed a great opportunity this time. Which restaurant did you guys go to? What does that doctor look like? Ren Ziheng and the others casually made up some news and told it to everyone. Although it was obviously a lie, it was well made up and successfully deceived everyone. After sending everyone away, the three of them couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. We finally managed to deceive everyone. Fortunately, Big Brother's reaction was fast enough. Otherwise, we would be in trouble. No matter what, as Inner Palace disciples, they'd always been training with everyone else. If they were to offend everyone because of this matter, then it would be extremely disadvantageous to their future development in the Inner Palace. Chapter 36:12. Chu Jinfeng nodded. Today's situation is really beyond our expectations. We should have tested it earlier. Otherwise, we wouldn't have fallen into such an awkward situation just now. Who would have thought that junior sister Bailey's medical skills would be so exquisite? If it were anyone else, they would probably have the same reaction as us. Renzime shook her head and sighed, but the situation now has no impact on us. The next time we go back, we really have to thank junior sister Bailey. If junior sister Bailey is willing to sell the healing medicine, I think junior sister Bailey will soon be very popular in the Penglai Palace. Chu Jinfeng's eyes lit up and a smile appeared on the corner of his lips. Previously, I thought that junior sister Bailey and the other three's popularity in the outer palace was too low. Now it seems that I don't have to worry too much. Once she releases the news, I'm afraid that not only the cultivators in the outer palace but also the cultivators in the inner palace will take the initiative to get closer to her. What you said is true. Ren Ziheng chuckled. A capable doctor will always be welcomed by everyone at any time. I suddenly feel that we are very lucky. If junior sister Bailey and the others hadn't met us by accident, I'm afraid the situation would be different now. Renzime and the other two exchanged glances. Then, smiles appeared on their faces. The next day, a touch of dawn appeared in the sky. Many cultivators on the island once again took the boat to the distant sea, intending to start the next day's hunting. Among these cultivators, it was not that no one had completed the hunting mission of 5,000 monsters, but they did not have enough confidence in hunting the monsters on the next island, so they had been staying here. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three did not delay at all and directly went to the next island early in the morning. Obviously, the next island also needed to hunt a certain number of monsters before they could continue. In the next few days, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three had been hunting wicked beasts on the island, but the strength of the wicked beasts in front of them was a certain gap, so it was not difficult to solve them. However, according to their observations, the amount of monstrous beasts in this training ground was truly not an ordinary amount. Moreover, the types of monstrous beasts were extremely complicated, and they all specialized in different things. We have been hunting demonic beasts for the past few days. We are now on the 5th island. This speed is pretty fast. Xiren smiled faintly as his gaze fell upon the island in the distance. Di Baichen nodded. These demon beasts are getting stronger and stronger. According to my estimation, we'll have to stay on the next island or the 2nd island. That's right. It's no longer that easy for me to deal with these demonic beasts. I'm afraid I'll have to do my best to deal with them when we reach the next island, Shangguan Yingying said slowly. The further we go, the fewer cultivators there will be on this island. The pressure we will have to bear when hunting demonic beasts will also increase. However, in this way we can settle on an island and cultivate in peace. It will be of great benefit to our cultivation. Chapter 36:13. Everything went as Di Baichen had expected. In the end, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others chose the second island. The demonic beasts in the vicinity of the island were extremely powerful. Even with their strength, they had to be careful everywhere. If they were not careful, they would be injured. However, they also knew that only in such an environment could they increase their cultivation at the fastest speed. However, there was one thing that exceeded their expectations. After they stopped on this island, Ao Lingxiao also came to this island. Look, isn't that Ao Lingxiao? Since when did he become so strong? I remember that he had always been training on the first island. I don't know. This guy's actions have always been strange. I don't know what kind of opportunity he got, but his strength suddenly increased. The cultivators on the island looked at Ao Lingxiao with astonishment in their eyes. Ao Lingxiao's special order to travel alone was very eye-catching in the outer palace. However, no one went to find trouble with him on normal days. In this training ground, the further back the island was, the less likely it was for new cultivators to appear. In the past few days there were only 5 people. They were Bailey Hongzhuang's group and Ao Lingxiao's group. In contrast, the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others was not strange, because the strength of these 4 people was indeed very strong, and everyone already knew about it. Then why is Ao Lingxiao following us? I feel that it's very strange. Shangguan Yingying looked at Ao Lingxiao not far away in confusion. Ever since Ao Lingxiao appeared, they felt that everything was very strange. If Ao Lingxiao's inexplicable warning made them feel very strange, but they could still understand it. However, Ao Lingxiao's attention to them and his following them to this island made them feel somewhat puzzled. The most important thing was that Ao Lingxiao had not said anything to them until now, which made them feel very puzzled. Bailey Hongzhuang also had a trace of doubt in her eyes. I also don't understand. Right now, I can be sure that he is following us on purpose. However, I don't know the specific reason. Aside from being taken care of by Master Long, there is nothing special about the 4 of us. Hasn't this guy always been alone and ignored everyone? Now it's really strange. Ziren frowned. Should I go and ask? Di Baichen shook his head. His expression was very calm. Since he took the initiative to follow us, he must have his reasons. If he wants to say it, he will tell us directly. If he doesn't want to say it, you won't be able to get anything out of him. Now, hearing Di Baichen's words, Ziren couldn't help but sigh. He said, he was really not as calm as Di Baichen. How can you guys be so calm? I really can't hold. In the next second, Shangguan Yingying stood up and walked towards Ao Lingxiao. She had to find out what this guy was doing. Seeing that Shangguan Yingying had directly set off, Bailey Hongzhuang was just about to call out to her when she was stopped by Di Baichen. Forget it. Since she wants to go, then let her go. Otherwise, with her personality, I'm afraid she won't be satisfied. Chapter 36:14. Shangguan Yingying walked to Ao Lingxiao's side. Her face was filled with confusion and anger. Ao Lingxiao, why have you been following us? Ao Lingxiao was not surprised by Shangguan Yingying's sudden questioning. I didn't expect you to ask me so soon. I thought you could hold on for a few more days. What nonsense is this? Why do you care when I ask you? Shangguan Yingying's anger turned into anger. Tell me clearly. Why have you been following us? No reason. Ao Lingxiao said slowly. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but sneer. Are you kidding? You've been following us for no reason? Don't tell me you have nothing better to do? You can think of it that way. Ao Lingxiao's lips curled into an evil smile. He twirled his messy hair with one hand, looking a little rogue. Looking at Ao Lingxiao like this, Shangguan Yingying only felt the anger in her heart rising. This guy was too hateful. If you don't tell me the truth, I'll treat you as an enemy. Shangguan Yingying's eyes gradually darkened. She didn't have a good temper to accompany Ao Lingxiao here. Ao Lingxiao had been sneaking around without giving a proper reason. She could only treat him as an enemy. Not far away, Ziren saw Shangguan Yingying's gradually darkening expression and couldn't help but frown. It seems that Yingying's inquiry didn't go well. Maybe they'll fight in the next second. I'll go take a look. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other and said, "Let's go together." Okay. When Di Beichen and the others came to Shangguan Yingying's side, they could feel the smell of gunpowder coming from her body. She was obviously enraged. "Yingying, what's the situation now?" Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask. Shangguan Yingying coldly glanced at Ao Lingxiao. "I asked this guy, but he didn't say anything." Ao Lingxiao looked at Di Beichen and the other two with a faint smile. "I'm just here to train. Is there a problem?" "There's naturally no problem for you to cultivate here." Di Beichen's black pupils were as deep and unfathomable as a black hole. He looked at Ao Lingxiao with a gaze that seemed to be able to see through everything. "You and I are both smart people. You must have followed us here for a reason. If you don't want us to treat you as an enemy, you might as well tell us." Di Beichen's voice was mild, as if he was chatting casually. However, an invisible pressure quietly spread out. Ao Lingxiao faced Di Beichen's sharp gaze and was ultimately defeated. "Forget it. I don't intend to be your enemy." "You don't have to mind it too much," Ao Lingxiao said slowly. "Then why are you following us?" When Ziren followed up with another question, a hint of hesitation quietly appeared on Ao Lingxiao's face. "In the end," he said, "I've been following you because I want to confirm one thing." When these words came out, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but be stunned. They were even more confused in their hearts. They didn't understand what Ao Lingxiao wanted to confirm from them. Confirm what? Chapter 36:15. Hearing Ao Lingxiao's explanation, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others frowned even more. "What is it that you can't say?" The puzzlement between Ziren's brows grew even stronger. "You're so strange, it's really too suspicious. I can swear that I have no intention of harming you behind your backs. Otherwise, I'll be struck by lightning." Ao Lingxiao raised 3 fingers and looked serious. "If I'm sure of something, I'll tell you immediately. If I'm wrong, I won't disturb you anymore." Seeing this, Ziren couldn't help but look at Di Beichen. He always felt that Ao Lingxiao was weird, which made him very unhappy. Di Beichen stared at Ao Lingxiao. His deep eyes kept changing. "I'll believe you for now. I'm indeed trustworthy." Ao Lingxiao's lips curled up. His smile was a bit evil and indifferent. After Di Beichen and the others returned to their original position, Ziren couldn't help but say, "Di Beichen, do you really believe this guy? I feel that this guy is too weird." "For the time being, I believe him. That guy's appearance is very special. I am certain that we didn't see Ao Lingxiao in the battle in the outer hall. As of now, I can't think of any reason why he would want to be our enemy. If he really is an enemy, he could hide in the dark and think of ways to deal with us. He wouldn't follow us so openly. The success rate is too low." Hearing Di Beichen's words, Ziren's eyes gradually revealed a look of realization. "You're right, but I really don't understand what this guy wants to confirm from us." "This? I don't know either." Di Beichen shook his head. They didn't know Ao Lingxiao before. What could Ao Lingxiao want to confirm from them? This was very strange to begin with. "In my opinion, let's put this matter aside for now." Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. "As long as Ao Lingxiao doesn't cause trouble for us, he can follow us if he wants. It's not a big deal. They were only here to train, so there was no need for them to hide anything." When Xue Changdong found out which island Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 had stopped at, his face turned ugly. "Brother Xue, they stopped at the 7th island. The strength of the demonic beasts near the 7th island is very strong. Although we can deal with the demonic beasts near the 7th island, it is very dangerous. Everyone should train near the 6th island." Fang Tianyi looked at Xue Changdong. He had never imagined that Di Beichen's group of 4 would be so monstrous as to head to the 7th island. In their team, Xue Changdong's strength was the strongest. Xue Changdong had no problem cultivating near the 7th island, but the other cultivators in their team were not as strong. After all, Xue Changdong was their captain and the strongest. The other teammates were not as strong as Xue Changdong. Chapter 36:16. Although he was very depressed about this, Xue Changdong also understood in his heart that perhaps this was the reason why Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were stronger than ordinary cultivators. It was because they were really too desperate. This was a completely masochistic cultivation method. With his strength, he could withstand going to the 7th island, but he needed to be careful everywhere. If he was careless, he would be injured. It was very dangerous. It was precisely because of this that he chose to cultivate on the 6th island. It also had the function of training, but it was safer. It was just that the speed of cultivation would be slightly slower. If they stay on the 7th island, it won't be easy for us to find a way to deal with them. Fang Tianyi looked helpless. He originally thought that this was a good task. Who would have thought that it would be so complicated? It actually made him feel helpless. Xue Changdong's face was slightly gloomy. Originally, he hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three would stay on the 6th island. He was most familiar with the 6th island, so it would be much easier for him to find a way to deal with them. He did not expect that things would not go as he wished. The situation was completely complicated. For a moment, Xue Changdong even wanted to tell Peng Kairue that he could not complete this task because the difficulty was a little too high. However, in the end, after thinking about it, Xue Changdong decided to wait a little longer. He only hoped that a good opportunity would appear in the end. However, at this moment, Penglai Palace suddenly issued a new task in this training ground. As soon as this task was announced, all the disciples in the outer palace were attracted by this task. In a short period of time, all the cultivators in the training ground were discussing this new task. Penglai Palace has issued a new mission. A new island has suddenly appeared in this training ground. There are many demon beasts gathered on the island. Now they are issuing a mission for us to go to the island to hunt demon beasts. Shangguan Yingying's eyes lit up. Are you guys interested? I heard that every time a new island appears, there always seems to be some treasure on it. Although I don't know what kind of treasure it is, it's not bad to go and check it out. They had never been well informed, but recently, almost all the cultivators were discussing this matter, so they also knew about it. As far as I know, the islands that appear for the first time are usually very dangerous. If you are not careful, you may lose your life. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said, At present, everyone only knows that a new island has appeared, but we don't know what kind of demonic beasts are on this island. We still have to be more careful. Di Beichen nodded slightly. Indeed, we'd better not act rashly before figuring out the specific situation. The more information we have, the more insurance we can have. No matter what, this was the first time they had come to this training ground. They didn't know much about the situation here, and they didn't know what the situation was like when the new island appeared. Plus, it was obvious that no one would tell them about the previous situation, so they couldn't act rashly for the time being. Now, many cultivators are ready to make a move. They are thinking about how and when to head to the new island. Let's act according to the situation, Wen Ziren said. Chapter 36:17. I didn't expect God to treat us so well. Now, such a great opportunity has appeared. Xue Changdong clapped his hands. His originally ugly face instantly regained its vigor. It was as if he had been injected with chicken blood. He was originally reluctant to give up the reward after success. Moreover, he didn't know how to explain to Peng Kairue if he gave up. Now that such an opportunity had appeared, it was simply pointing him in the right direction. Brother Xue, although the appearance of a new island is indeed an opportunity, the strength of the demonic beasts on each new island is very powerful. I'm afraid that even if we go there, it won't be easy to find an opportunity to take action. Fang Tianyi's brows were still furrowed. He didn't understand why Shui Changdong was suddenly so excited. It was as if he already knew that they would succeed. No matter what, such an opportunity has appeared. It's better than us not knowing what to do before. Shui Changdong's face was still filled with joy. Originally, it wouldn't be easy to just rely on us to set them up. But now, almost all the cultivators will go to the new island. The size of the island isn't small. Everyone's actions will definitely be very chaotic. We can take this opportunity to think of a way to set them up. Maybe we don't even need to do anything. Just by relying on the power of the demonic beasts, we can accomplish all of this effortlessly. Brother Shui is right. At least we still have a chance of success. Every time a new island appears, a lot of cultivators will die. It's already very dangerous. In addition, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three don't have any allies. As long as no one helps them, our actions will be very easy. Hearing that, Fong Tianyi nodded. Indeed. I hope they will also appear on the new island. Not long after the mission was released, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three noticed that many cultivators on the seventh island had stood up and decided to go to the new island. It was said that the rewards for killing the demonic beasts on the new island would be very generous. Anyway, everyone had to risk their lives to hunt demonic beasts here. Going to the new island was also risking their lives. Since the danger was similar, naturally, they would choose the place with higher benefit. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three weren't in a hurry. However, not long after, all the cultivators on the seventh island had left. The originally lively island suddenly became deserted. However, at that moment, other than Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, there was still one person who hadn't left. That person was Ao Lingxiao. Seeing that Ao Lingxiao was still there, Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but ask, "Hey, everyone has already set off for the new island. Why are you still here?" "I'm not interested in the new island. I'm only interested in you guys." The corner of Ao Lingxiao's lips curled up. "If you go, I'll go with you. If you don't, I won't go either." Looking at Ao Lingxiao's indifferent expression, Shangguan Yingying rolled her eyes. Incurable. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were somewhat helpless towards Ao Lingxiao. They didn't know what this guy was really doing, but they could still feel that Ao Lingxiao really didn't have any intention of harming them. "Let's go," Di Beichen said slowly. "Since everyone has already set off, there's no point in us staying here. Why don't we go and take a look?" Chapter 36:18. After seeing Di Beichen and the other three set off, Ao Lingxiao stood up and followed behind Di Beichen and the other three. Sitting on the small boat, Shangguan Yingying looked at the small boat that was following them with a helpless expression. "This Ao Lingxiao is really a follower. Are you going to let him continue to follow us like this? What else can we do?" Di Beichen raised his eyebrows and asked with a smile. "I think there must be something wrong with this guy's sneaky behavior. Why don't we capture him and interrogate him? We'll definitely know the answer." Shangguan Yingying squinted her eyes and a ruthless look flashed across her eyes. Ziren shook his head and said, "Forget it. According to Beichen and my observation, this guy is probably stronger than us. It's impossible to capture him and interrogate him." "Stronger than us?" Shangguan Yingying was stunned. "Is that true? If this guy is so strong, why is he still an Outer Palace disciple? There must be a reason." Di Beichen said slowly, "He's alone. Although the Outer Palace disciples dare to talk about him, none of them are enemies with him. He must be capable. That's why you can conclude that he doesn't have the intention to harm us. Otherwise, with his strength, he could just attack us directly. There's no need for him to go through so much trouble. Am I right?" Bailey Hongzhuang said. Di Beichen smiled elegantly and nodded. "That's right. So let's just let it be. It's hard to believe that such a sloppy guy is an expert." Shangguan Yingying shook her head, and still had a look of disbelief on her face. "You can't judge a book by its cover." The new island was not far away from the seventh island. It didn't take long for the four of them to arrive. Looking around, they realized that there were many cultivators gathered on the new island. Almost all the cultivators in the outer palace who were free were there. Wow, there are so many people here! Shangguan Yingying exclaimed. From the looks of it, there must be many cultivators who came here from the outer palace after seeing the mission. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, and in her line of sight, there were already a lot of cultivators gathered on the periphery of the island. Indeed, the reward for this task is not low. Presumably, as long as the cultivators are not in seclusion, they have all come. Let's go up and take a look. I wonder what kind of monsters are on this new island, Ziren said with a smile. After putting away the boat, the four of them squeezed into the large group. As they gradually walked forward, they finally found out about the monsters on the island. Six-legged bright scorpion, Di Beichen said slowly. The six-legged bright scorpion's strength is equivalent to a Purple Realm 5th level cultivator. Everyone can deal with it. I just hope that the eight-legged bright scorpion won't appear here. The eight-legged bright scorpion's strength is equivalent to a Purple Realm 6th level cultivator. There are so many monsters on this island. If an eight-legged bright scorpion appears, the danger level will increase by a lot. All the cultivators of Penglai Island had reached the 5th level of the Purple Realm. The cultivators of Penglai Palace were even stronger than the average 5th level of the Purple Realm. Chapter 36:19. Once surrounded by the 8-footed bright scorpions, even a Purple Realm 7th level or Purple Realm 8th level cultivator would find it hard to survive. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other with a serious expression. The current situation wasn't clear yet. If it was only the 6-footed bright scorpions, they wouldn't have to worry too much. However, if it was the 8-footed bright scorpions, they would have to be careful. Even if they had a treasure like the Chaos Ring, they couldn't use it in front of everyone, so they had to be careful. Ao Ling Xiao was still following behind Di Beichen's group of four. Many cultivators, after seeing this scene, had a thick look of surprise on their faces. Hasn't Ao Ling Xiao always been alone? Why is he with Di Beichen's group now? Di Beichen's group has always been a team of four. Other than Li Xingkai who died in their hands, I haven't seen them close to any other cultivators in the outer palace. Maybe they're facing each other. Because they usually don't interact with other cultivators, it makes sense that they're together now. If that's the case, then it's interesting. Ao Ling Xiao's strength isn't weak. With the 5 of them together, they're even stronger. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but frown when she saw that everyone had grouped them together. They weren't together with Ao Ling Xiao, this weird guy. Ao Ling Xiao ignored everyone's gazes. It was as if it had nothing to do with him, no matter how they looked at it. On this new island, the reward for killing a 6-footed bright scorpion is equivalent to killing 4 demonic beasts on other islands. This reward can be said to be 4 times greater. That's right. This is a good opportunity. As long as we can kill more 6-footed bright scorpions, we can exchange them for treasures when we return. Although they would soon have to fight with demonic beasts, many cultivators present were very excited because the reward was very generous. As long as they exchanged for enough cultivation resources, they could increase their breakthrough speed. Looks like we have to work hard to hunt more demonic beasts. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and looked around. Almost all the surrounding cultivators had a strong fighting spirit in their eyes, as if they were ready to fight against the 6-footed bright scorpion. When Ziren nodded, "This island is extremely large. If the entire island is filled with 6-footed bright scorpions, their numbers would be terrifying. According to the information I have learned, it seems that every time a new island appears in this training ground, the disciples of Penglai Palace will clear out the monsters on this island together, and then gradually transform it into a new island that can be trained on." I see. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly understood. There are too many demonic beasts on this island. Only by working together can we quickly get rid of these demonic beasts. If there are too few people, it will be impossible to get rid of them. The cultivators of Penglai Palace did not waste any time and immediately approached the inner part of the island. At the same time, the aura of Yuanli fluctuated continuously. Any team of six-footed bright scorpions that they encountered had already started fighting. Battle circles had already formed. Chapter 36:20. The battle broke out on this new island. The disciples of Penglai Palace had already surrounded the entire island and were constantly attacking inside. Various kinds of powerful yuan qi undulations rippled out unceasingly. Various kinds of splendid martial skills were displayed unceasingly. The sound of explosions resounded loudly, and the entire island seemed to have started to tremble. This kind of battle was undoubtedly extremely shocking. The fluctuations of the battle were even more terrifying. At this time, almost everyone had put down their personal grudges. Everyone's goal was to eliminate the six-footed bright scorpions in front of them. The six-footed bright scorpions obviously hated the human cultivators who suddenly appeared in front of them. They were constantly attacking the human cultivators. A strong smell of blood drifted on this island. The ground was gradually dyed red with blood. The corpses of the six-footed bright scorpions fell one by one. However, in this process, many cultivators were injured or even died. Bailey Hongzhuang's team of 4 was undoubtedly the weakest among the many teams. However, their fighting strength was also very strong. Ao Lingxiao still disdained to team up with other cultivators at this time. He was still alone, as if he was already used to all of this. However, in this situation where it was easy to be surrounded by the six-footed bright scorpions, Ao Lingxiao was very dangerous alone. Fortunately, he was quite strong and was not injured. Di Beichen looked at Ao Lingxiao not far away and suddenly said, "Ao Lingxiao, if you don't mind, let's temporarily team up on this island. How about it?" Ao Lingxiao, who was in the middle of the battle, couldn't help but be stunned after hearing Di Beichen's words. His eyes flashed with deep surprise. He instinctively wanted to refuse, but after seeing Di Beichen's sincere gaze, he thought for a moment and nodded, "Okay." He understood that Di Beichen wanted him to join the team not because Di Beichen's team was lacking in manpower, but because Di Beichen wanted to help him. With his current situation, although there was no problem dealing with these six-footed bright scorpions, he was naturally not as safe as a team working together. Moreover, the reason why he was still able to cope now was that his origin power was extremely sufficient. However, as the battle dragged on, he would no longer have the peak battle prowess that he had now. At that time, he would definitely be surrounded by danger. It was because of this that Di Beichen asked him to join the team. If he had seen pity or sympathy in Di Beichen's eyes, he would have disdained it. However, Di Beichen did not. He had only chosen to join because he saw sincerity and appreciation in Di Beichen's eyes. A smile suddenly appeared on that unrestrained and unruly face. The reason he had been following Di Beichen was to confirm one thing, but now that he gradually understood Di Beichen's character, he suddenly felt a sense of admiration. Although this young fellow had a devilish face that made people very unhappy, it was hard not to admire his character. Smart, wise, and steady. With all these characteristics gathered in one person, it was truly perfect. Perhaps it was indeed a good choice to be friends with them. Chapter 36:21. Shouldn't you be the one who's distracted? How do you know I'm distracted if you don't look at me? Ao Lingxiao looked at Shangguan Yingying with a faint smile. There was still a trace of evil and unruly smile on his lips, but there was a trace of sincerity in his eyes. Shangguan Yingying was stunned. "I'm too lazy to care about you. I'm too lazy to look at you." The cultivators of Penglai Palace were indeed powerful. Their combat power was much stronger than the cultivators of the outside world. This could be seen from the efficiency of the battle. The six-footed scorpion was considered very powerful among the Red Realm Level 5 cultivators. Ordinary Purple Realm Level 5 cultivators would have to struggle to deal with the six-footed scorpion, but it was not difficult for the disciples of Penglai Palace to deal with it. Our progress is not slow. If we continue to sweep at this speed, I'm afraid we can kill all the six-footed scorpions on this island in less than a month. Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful face had a bright smile. Fortunately, this new island was not dangerous. Shangguan Yingying nodded. It should be so. After this mission is over, let's go back to Penglai Palace to rest. With their ability, it was not unusual for them to be outside. It was just that they wanted to go back and relax after staying here for so long. Okay. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. When the time comes, we can ask Ao Lingxiao if he has confirmed what he wants to confirm. With that, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes could not help but turn to Ao Lingxiao. Noticing Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze, Ao Lingxiao was slightly stunned and said, "What I said is not so easy to confirm. This matter is very important. I must confirm it before I say it. However, after this matter is said, it depends on whether you agree or not." Di Beichen raised his good-looking eyebrows, his brow furrowed in thought. "That depends on what you want to tell us. If I confirm it, it is related to you." As Ao Lingxiao's voice fell, the relaxed expressions of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could not help but change. Their eyes then condensed on Ao Lingxiao. If this matter was related to Bailey Hongzhuang, Wen Ziren, or even Shangguan Yingying, they would not care too much because they were sure that they had no interaction with Ao Lingxiao before. What Ao Lingxiao wanted to confirm was probably related to Master Long. However, now that Ao Lingxiao said that this matter was related to Di Beichen, then this was not necessarily the case. Di Beichen's origin until now. They always thought that the reason why Di Beichen for so many years had no news of his parents was that his parents on Penglai Island. It was precisely because it was isolated from the outside world that Si Tuyen had spent so many years helping to search for any useful information. Could it be that Ao Lingxiao knew something about Di Beichen's origin? After Ao Lingxiao noticed the sudden change in the gazes of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. His originally uncertain expression seemed to have become a bit more certain. "It's related to me?" Di Beichen's eyes gradually deepened. "You and I have no relationship before. What you want to say is related to me." Chapter 36-22. Brother Shui, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three actually formed a team with Ao Lingxiao. This is really strange. Didn't Ao Lingxiao never form a team with anyone? Looking at them, they seemed to be chatting happily. Fang Tianyi frowned. Shui Changdong's face also revealed a puzzled expression. Ao Lingxiao's actions this time are really strange. Although this guy's temperament is very strange, his strength is not weak. Now that he has formed a team with Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, this will undoubtedly add some trouble to our next operation. Looking at the five figures chatting happily in the distance, Shui Changdong gradually frowned. He realized that the situation was really getting more and more troublesome. Originally, it was very difficult to get rid of Di Beichen and Ziren. Now that Ao Lingxiao had joined, none of the three people were simple. Moreover, he still had to keep Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying, which undoubtedly increased the difficulty of the matter. Brother Shui, I also observed their battle today. From their performance, the six-footed bright scorpion doesn't seem to be difficult for them. It seems that it won't be easy for us to get rid of them with the help of the six-footed bright scorpion. Fang Tianyi now felt that the difficulty of this matter was too high. Even if the reward was rich, it would not be worth it if they suffered a double loss. Don't worry, I found another thing today. Shui Changdong smiled. What is it? This island not only has the six-footed bright scorpion, but also the eight-footed bright scorpion. Once this was said, Fang Tianyi and the other cultivators could not help but be stunned. Their faces suddenly became nervous. Eight-footed bright scorpion? That's right. When I went deeper today, I found the existence of the eight-footed bright scorpion. Currently, everyone only saw the periphery of the island and is not clear about the situation inside. If I'm not wrong, I'm afraid that only the periphery of the island has the 6-footed bright scorpion, but the inside of the island is the 8-footed bright scorpion. Shui Changdong glanced at everyone and continued, if the 6-footed bright scorpion cannot cause trouble for them, the 8-footed bright scorpion is not so easy to deal with. Once everyone knew about this situation, they would definitely choose to join forces to deal with the demonic beast. At that time, I can suggest that the male disciples lead the way while the female disciples bring up the rear. I believe that no one will reject this suggestion. Only in this way can we successfully separate them. As long as they separate, I will guide Di Baichen and the others to the gathering place of the 8-legged bright scorpions. Once they are surrounded, so what if they are strong? They won't be able to make it out alive. The corners of Shui Changdong's mouth curled up slightly. The malicious and ruthless light in his eyes grew even more intense. However, he was secretly delighted in his heart. He had thought for a long time before coming up with such a foolproof plan. The eyes of Fong Tianyi and the others lit up, and they instantly gained a bit of confidence. Brother Shui, your idea is really great. If everything really goes as planned, then we will definitely succeed. As long as we're able to complete this mission, Senior Brother Peng and the others will definitely value us even more in the future. In the future, we'll be able to receive their care after we go to the inner hall. That's undoubtedly the best outcome. Shui Changdong chuckled. Chapter 36-23. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 5, along with many cultivators from the Penglai Outer Palace, hunted wicked beasts on the new island. Whenever their yuanli was exhausted, everyone would retreat some distance to cultivate and restore their yuanli. On this day, everyone continued to advance into the island as usual. Although only 7 days had passed, the number of 6-footed bright scorpions that died every day was astonishing. Because of this, everyone also deeply understood the huge reproductive ability of monsters. The number of 6-footed bright scorpions on the entire island could be said to be terrifying. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were fighting with the wicked beasts, a cry of surprise came from the front. 8-footed bright scorpions! There are 8-footed bright scorpions among the monsters. Hearing this cry, the surrounding cultivators couldn't help but be stunned. Then, their eyes flashed with deep surprise. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at each other. They didn't expect 8-footed bright scorpions to appear. Baichen, your judgment is right. 8-footed bright scorpions really appeared. It seems that the next cleanup work won't be so easy. Ziren looked at Di Baichen and sighed. Di Baichen's eyes became more serious. It seems that these 8-footed bright scorpions are probably in the center of the island. Everyone has to be more careful if they continue to fight. If we are surrounded by 8-footed bright scorpions, even the 5 of us won't have a good time. Don't worry, we will just follow the team. Generally, there won't be any problems. Ao Lingxiao seemed very indifferent, as if he didn't care about this news at all. Seeing that Ao Lingxiao still didn't care, Di Baichen and the others smiled faintly and shook their heads. They didn't know when Ao Lingxiao's indifferent temperament started. They really couldn't imagine what could make Ao Lingxiao care. Feeling the gaze of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, Ao Lingxiao couldn't help but say, "Everyone came here to hunt monsters to get more points. There's no need to lose your life for this. I don't like to be a hero, and I don't like to look at other people's high and mighty leaders. I'm just happy and carefree by myself." You're carefree. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slightly raised. Ao Lingxiao's words explained why he was always alone. But thinking about it, she felt that Ao Lingxiao's view was very clear. In comparison, perhaps their obsession was deeper, so they couldn't be so carefree and indifferent to everything. However, although your temperament is carefree, I think there are still some things in your heart that you can't see through of things. Ao Lingxiao, Ao Lingxiao, Ao of Ao Lingxiao. Of Ao. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Ao Lingxiao couldn't help but be stunned. He saw the wisdom and understanding in the former's eyes, as if she had seen through everything. Suddenly, Ao Lingxiao laughed in a low voice. I suddenly understand why Master Long looks at you in a different light. You are indeed powerful. Seeing that Ao Lingxiao had indirectly admitted to his words, Bailey Hongzhuang's smile quietly widened. In this world, even the most carefree person would have some things that they couldn't let go of. Chapter 36-24. As Bailey Hongzhuang and the others continued to advance, they would occasionally see an 8-footed bright scorpion among the 6-footed bright scorpions. Seeing this scene, they also understood that this should be the gathering place of the 6-footed bright scorpions. It was just that some 8-footed bright scorpions would occasionally appear here. Only when they went deeper would they enter the territory of the 8-footed bright scorpions. Because there weren't many 8-footed bright scorpions, it wasn't difficult for them to deal with them. It was just that their advancement speed would be slightly slower than a few days ago. Gradually, the cultivators of the Penglai Outer Palace found it more and more difficult to deal with the 6-footed bright scorpions because the number of 8-footed bright scorpions was gradually increasing. On this day, Xue Changdong proposed that the stronger male cultivators lead the way in front because the 8-footed bright scorpions were appearing more and more frequently. Moreover, they didn't seem to be evenly distributed. There were more and less of them. Therefore, everyone had to explore the path first. After exploring where it was more dangerous, everyone would deal with it together. The female cultivators were mostly weaker than the male cultivators, so it was more appropriate for them to take care of the fish that got caught in the net at the back. Following Xue Changdong's suggestion, most of the cultivators present nodded in agreement. At this moment, everyone was a disciple of the Penglai Palace. Naturally, they needed to work together to deal with these monsters. In the past, the cultivators of the Penglai Palace would often make the same arrangements when they encountered such a situation. I didn't expect Xue Changdong to be so protective of the fairer sex. He actually proposed to let the female cultivators stay at the back. This way, I'm afraid many female disciples have a very good impression of him. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile as she spoke slowly. Ao Lingxiao casually glanced at Xue Changdong, who was not far away, and said, "This guy usually likes to act like a hero. However, his strength is also one of the top in the Outer Palace, so his words have a lot of appeal. Don't talk about others. In my opinion, he might be much better than you." Shangguan Yingying shrugged. Ao Lingxiao suddenly smiled sarcastically. "You're blind. According to my understanding, although this guy looks dignified on the surface, he has done a lot of bad things behind the scenes. Most of the time, it's this gentlemanly appearance that makes it easy to trick people. If it was someone like me, I'm afraid no one would believe me." Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but be stunned by Ao Lingxiao's words. She felt that Ao Lingxiao's words were very reasonable. "You know yourself. Well, with your appearance, no one will pay attention to you. Of course I know myself. I never ask about anything that has nothing to do with me, whether it's murder or arson. Whether it's a gentleman or a despicable person, it's enough for me to see through them. If others can't see through them, they deserve trouble." Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other, and then looked at Xue Changdong in the distance. From the information revealed by Ao Lingxiao, this Xue Changdong was not a good person. Although Xue Changdong looked righteous and awe-inspiring, compared to the wanton and unrestrained Ao Lingxiao, they still believed in Ao Lingxiao. Chapter 36-25. That's right. The decision of the other female cultivators has nothing to do with us. In any case, the 5 of us should stick together. Shangguan Yingying nodded. Their group was already very small. If they were to split up now, the number of people would be even smaller. Although many cultivators were standing on the same side, no one knew if they would really stick together when the time came. In the end, it was safer for them to stick together. Moreover, they were already hated in the Outer Palace. In such a chaotic situation, they might be killed. Hearing Shangguan Yingying's words, Ao Lingxiao couldn't help but look at her in surprise. He didn't think that Shangguan Ying, who had always acted like she didn't care about him, would actually treat him as a teammate at a time like this. While the five of them were talking, the cultivators present had also made their choices. Soon, the male cultivators and female cultivators automatically split up. The male cultivators walked to the front while the female cultivators stayed behind. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's group of five also walked to the group of male cultivators. Many cultivators noticed the actions of Bailey Hongzhuang's group of five, and a trace of surprise appeared on their faces. Clearly, they didn't expect them to make such a choice. Bailey Hongzhuang's group is really unique. Others can't join them. I think only a guy like Ao Lingxiao can blend in with them. That's not it. I think their relationship with the inner palace cultivators is pretty good. Now that everyone has split up, they still haven't made any moves. It's really. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others stood quietly in the same place. The words of others did not affect them in the slightest. In fact, they were already used to the criticism of the crowd. They had long been accustomed to it. Xue Changdong originally thought that his suggestion was extremely good. This way, he could justifiably split up Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Ying from the group. It would be much easier for him to make a move on Di Beichen and Shangguan Ying. However, Xue Changdong realized that the five of them were still in the same group as before. They did not seem to have the slightest intention of splitting up. Xue Changdong could not help but frown. The next moment, Xue Changdong walked quickly to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others and said, "Are you dissatisfied with my suggestion? Everyone has already separated. Why are you still like this?" "No." Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. "The reason why senior brother Xue let the female cultivators stand at the back is undoubtedly to protect us. However, we are already used to being in the same team. Besides, we are not afraid of danger, so let's explore the way for everyone." Bailey Hongzhuang's elegant and refined face rippled with a smile as elegant as a lotus. Bailey Hongzhuang's words were reasonable and justified. In a few words, she explained their behavior, making people unable to find any fault. Everyone, who thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others would definitely ignore them, couldn't help but be stunned at this moment. They didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would actually explain this matter. It seemed that she was much easier to get along with than they thought. From the moment these four people entered Penglai Palace until now, what everyone saw was the strong side they showed in battle. Every time they met, it was either a battle or a conflict. Everyone really didn't have any understanding of their true character. Chapter 36-26. Looking at the beautiful face in front of him, Xue Changdong's expression couldn't help but pause. His eyes couldn't help but flash with a touch of amazement. He already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was beautiful, but for him, nothing was more important than strength. In addition, he also knew in his heart that he wasn't worthy of a woman like Bailey Hongzhuang. However, at this moment, when he saw the perfect face at such a close distance, he couldn't suppress the shock in his heart. Too beautiful! He had never seen such a perfect face. There was no lack of charm in the elegance, no lack of nobility in the elegance. It was as if there was magic. As long as one looked at it, it would be unforgettable. At this moment, when he heard Bailey Hongzhuang's light and sweet voice, Xue Changdong only felt that he was almost bewitched. "Brother Xue." Fang Tian saw that Xue Changdong began to be in a daze and couldn't help but remind him in a low voice. "Ah." Only then did Xue Changdong come back to his senses. When he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang again, he had already regained his senses. "Junior sister Bailey, what you said is very reasonable. However, now that everyone is following this rule, if you are too independent, it doesn't seem too appropriate. After all, once you are an exception, other cultivators may follow suit. In this way, the rule will be broken, and the following things will not be convenient to continue. In order to let this matter proceed properly, I hope the two of you can understand." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang slightly frowned. She didn't think that this matter was a big deal at all. However, at this moment, after Xue Changdong raised the matter to such a high level, she didn't know how to refute. Shangguan Yingying's face also looked a little ugly. This Xue Changdong is beating around the bush to put such a big label on us. If we refuse, isn't it the same as making this label true? I said earlier that this kind of guy is best at this kind of method. As long as you don't agree, he will directly put the label of not cooperating with you. In this way, it seems polite, but it is full of coercion. Ao Ling Xiao shrugged and said. Xue Changdong's face was rippling with a smile. He believed that, under such circumstances, the other party could no longer refuse. So be it, Xiren said. You'll be safe if you stay behind. Besides, this isn't a big deal. We'll meet again when the time comes. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Di Beichen. Di Beichen also nodded. It's fine. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang said, All right then. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying slowly walked out of the group and joined the women's group at the back. The smile on Xue Changdong's face gradually widened. He cupped his hands towards Bailey Hongzhuang and the others and said, Thank you for your cooperation, junior brothers and sisters. Standing in the female team, Bailey Hongzhuang's tightly furrowed brows did not loosen. This situation reminds me of the time when I was training in the inner palace. At that time, she said that if there was danger in the future, she would definitely not be separated from everyone. However, now she was stuck again. The last time they went out, it was an act of suicide. However, from what I see, this island is not that dangerous. Besides, there are so many cultivators here. Nothing will happen. Shangguan Yingying comforted. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's true. This new island is indeed much safer. That's why I agreed. Chapter 36-27. Master, I feel that there's something wrong with the way Xue Changdong looks at you. Xiao He sat on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder and dangled her 2 feet, a puzzled look on her face. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but chuckle. That's because he's taken a fancy to Hongzhuang. Previously, his eyes were staring straight at Hongzhuang as if he had lost his soul. Xue Changdong's absent-mindedness was extremely obvious. If it weren't for the cultivator beside him reminding him, it was unknown when he would have regained his senses. That's true. Xiao He chuckled. Master's charm is indeed amazing. What nonsense are you all talking about? Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head, a hint of helplessness on her pretty face. Shangguan Yingying raised her eyebrows and chuckled. I'm telling the truth. However, Hongzhuang, you're really the most beautiful person I've seen in all these years. Back then, I thought that Beichen was so good-looking that I was afraid that no woman in this world could match him. It wasn't until I met you that I realized that there was actually someone who could match him so well. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. When she first met Di Beichen, she was also shocked. She never thought that the scoundrel who called her his wife would actually become her true love. Since everyone has been divided into teams, let's begin. Suddenly, Xue Changdong's voice came from the front. After receiving everyone's response, everyone continued to advance towards the inner part of the island. Brother Xue, now that we've successfully separated them, the next step should be very smooth, right? Fang Tiany's eyes shone brightly, and his face was filled with an unconcealable smile. Now everything was ready, except for the east wind. Xue Changdong nodded. That's right. I've already told Di Beichen and the rest to move towards the place with the most 8-legged bright scorpions. Later, we'll be not far from them and take the opportunity to push them forward. This way we'll be able to complete the task. Brother Xue is wise. Everyone thought that such a troublesome matter would be solved by Brother Xue's little trick. I'm really impressed. Xue Changdong smiled proudly. The most important thing in Penglai Palace is the brain. As long as you're willing to use your brain, you'll get twice the result with half the effort. When we return, the cultivation resources promised by Senior Peng will also be ours. Let's strive to enter the inner palace successfully during the inner palace assessment. With Brother Xue's ability, There won't be any problems with entering the palace. In the blink of an eye, these groups, theirs and the others'. In just a blink of an eye, these ants, these SSS, they SS, these. There's really a lot of cultivators here. We've been squeezing and we've disappeared. Shangguan Yingying looked ahead in surprise. Looking at the unfamiliar figures in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes darkened. Yingying, let's look for Di Baichens. I don't know why, but I have a bad feeling. Chapter 36-28. When Xue Changdong saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were no longer behind him, his lips slowly curled into a sinister smile, and his eyes became brighter. Earlier on, he had already bribed some cultivators to deliberately confuse everyone. Only by doing so could he completely separate Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Otherwise, if Di Baichen and the others were in danger and Bailey Hongzhuang and the others ran over, wouldn't his previous plan be in vain? Di Baichen and the other two cleared the monsters in front of them and did not pay much attention to the back. They knew that with Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying's strength, there was no danger at the back of the group. The number of 8-legged bright scorpions is increasing, Di Baichen said as he fought. Ziren nodded with a solemn expression. Indeed, we have already encountered 3 8-legged bright scorpions along the way. It has only been an hour, and they have not appeared so frequently in the past few days. In my opinion, our opponents will completely become the 8-legged bright scorpions in a few days. These guys are very difficult to deal with. Ao Lingxiao frowned. If it was not for Di Baichen and the others, he would not like to join in the fun. As Di Baichen and the others gradually went deeper, they suddenly realized that the 8-legged bright scorpions appeared more frequently. It went from 2 or 3 at the beginning to 5, 6, 7 or 8. Most importantly, these 8-legged bright scorpions appeared at the same time. As a result, they could not help but feel the pressure. The 8-legged bright scorpion's strength was equivalent to a Purple Realm 6th level cultivator. Although Ziren had the ability to fight above his level, with so many of them appearing, it was difficult for him to deal with them. Something is wrong with this situation. Di Baichen stopped and looked ahead with a complicated expression. According to our judgment, the 8-legged bright scorpions should appear in a few days. Why is it like this now? When Ziren was also somewhat puzzled. I don't know either. We've been separated from the main group for quite a while, but judging from the battle fluctuations coming from the others, it seems that the situation they've encountered isn't as complicated as ours. Could it be that there are more 8-legged bright scorpions in our direction? Ao Lingxiao frowned. The direction we are in seems to have been pointed out by Xue Changdong. Have you offended Xue Changdong before? No. Di Baichen shook his head and said with certainty. Although we have offended many people in the outer palace, we have never seen Xue Changdong. Maybe I'm thinking too much. Ao Lingxiao shrugged and shook his head. Since there was no conclusion, they continued to walk forward. Moreover, there were more than 10 cultivators beside them. As long as they were not surrounded by 8-legged bright scorpions, there would be no problem. Brother Xue, the 8-legged bright scorpion's nest is in front. If Di Baichen and the others walk in, it will be like poking a hornet's nest. Let's not continue forward. Xue Changdong looked ahead. Let them go in by themselves. We will stay here. If they escape, we will guard here and throw them back. Brother Xue, they have more than 10 cultivators with them. What about them? Fang Tianyi could not help but ask. Chapter 36-29. Di Baichen and the others continued to move forward. Suddenly, the movement in front of them became louder. Seeing this, they couldn't help but stop and look in front of them. There seems to be something wrong in front. It seems like there are many monsters approaching us. There were already many monsters in front. Why did the number suddenly increase? Ziren frowned. I think this situation is a bit strange. Why don't we retreat and be careful? Di Baichen nodded. That's right. This situation is indeed a bit strange. Let's wait for a while. However, when Di Baichen suggested that everyone wait for a while, the other cultivators didn't seem to care. Didn't everyone say that Di Baichen and the others are very powerful? Looking at their current performance, I really can't tell. So what if there are many monsters in front of us? It's just a 6-footed bright scorpion. If one comes, we'll kill one. If a group comes, we'll kill a group. There's no need to be afraid. I don't know what Master Long sees in them. In my opinion, I'm much better than them. Di Baichen raised his beautiful eyebrows, but ignored the sarcastic words of the crowd. He turned to Ziren and Ao Lingxiao and said, "We'll wait here for a while. Don't worry." In this kind of dangerous situation, he didn't want to let his emotions affect his decisions. Hong Zhuang was still waiting for him. Since the last incident, he promised Hong Zhuang that he wouldn't easily take risks. He didn't want Hong Zhuang to worry. Okay. Ziren and Ao Lingxiao nodded together. They also had a bad feeling in their hearts. In this kind of situation, there was no need to show off. When the crowd saw that Di Baichen and the others had stopped, their footsteps paused slightly. Then, they threw a disdainful look at Di Baichen and the others and continued to move forward. Xue Changdong and the others obviously didn't think that Di Baichen and the others' intuition would be so accurate. They actually chose to stop here. Oh no, if they stop here, won't they not fall into our trap? Fang Tianyi was a little flustered. It wasn't easy for them to come up with such a foolproof plan. They were about to succeed, but they didn't expect the other party to suddenly stop. Xue Changdong couldn't help but be stunned. How can this be? While Di Baichen and the other two were thinking about the situation in front of them, they suddenly heard a slight sound coming from behind them. The three of them couldn't help but look at each other. Along the way, all the demon beasts behind them had been beheaded by them. It was impossible for any more demon beasts to appear. If that was the case, then there was only one possibility. What appeared behind them wasn't a demonic beast, but a human. Why are there people behind us? Di Baichen winked, and the three of them immediately went into hiding. Xue Changdong and the others were just thinking about countermeasures, but when they looked again, they found that Di Baichen and the other two had already disappeared. How can this be? Where are they? Xue Changdong was slightly startled. He kept looking around. This situation was really unexpected. Fang Tianyi looked around and didn't see Di Baichen and the others. He couldn't help but ask, could they have continued to move forward? Chapter 36:30. Di Baichen and the other two hid behind the trees and finally saw the figures of Xue Changdong and the others. A trace of confusion appeared on their faces. Didn't you say that you didn't have any interactions with them? But they're clearly here for you. Ao Lingxiao tilted his head and looked at Di Baichen and Ziren beside him. His evil face was filled with confusion. I can confirm that I didn't have any interactions with Xue Changdong and the others before, but I don't understand why they would target us. Di Baichen's eyes flashed with a thoughtful light. It was because he was sure that he had never offended Xue Changdong that he was so relaxed all the way. He didn't expect that he would be schemed against in the end. Ao Lingxiao, do you have any conflicts with them? Ziren couldn't help but ask. Ao Lingxiao chuckled. Do you think that they would go through so much trouble to deal with a lone guy like me? That's strange. Ziren's brows furrowed deeper and deeper. Could it be that they are avenging someone else? I don't think so. Ao Lingxiao shook his head. In this Penglai palace, everyone only cares about their own interest. Apart from their own loved ones, no one would do such a strenuous and unrewarding thing. You are people that Master Long thinks highly of, so there is no need for them to offend you for some friend. At this time, Di Baichen's deep and magnetic voice suddenly rang out, I'm afraid, their target is Hong Zhuang and Yingying. As soon as these words came out, Ziren's expression suddenly changed, and Di Baichen continued to speak. Previously, Xue Changdong deliberately suggested that we separate the men and women. Logically speaking, Hong Zhuang and the others insisted on being with us, so there shouldn't be any problems. But Xue Changdong put a hat on them, so they had no choice but to leave the team. Now they're here to deal with us. Isn't it because of Hong Zhuang and Yingying? Di Beichen narrowed his long and narrow eyes. His pupils, which were as deep as the sea, quietly flashed with a ruthless light. If they wanted to deal with him, he would not be so angry. But the other party actually dared to have designs on his wife. That was absolutely unforgivable. Ao Lingxiao lowered his eyes and pondered for a moment before saying, "That is very likely. Both of your wives are graceful and outstanding. Among the 3,000 female disciples of Penglai Palace, their appearances are among the best. It is not strange for men to covet them." Damn it, he actually dares to have designs on my Yingying. I must dig out his eyeballs and see if he still dares to have such thoughts. Xiren's originally gentle face instantly became fierce. Although he usually looked indifferent, it was different when it came to his wife. He and Yingying usually quarreled, but the more they quarreled, the better their relationship became. Yingying's position in his heart was incomparable to anyone else's. Since someone dared to have designs on his Yingying, he must take the other party's life. Ao Lingxiao, who originally didn't care too much, suddenly realized that the two people in front of him were emitting a fierce aura. Their eyes were as sharp as knives, and murderous intent rose in their eyes, causing people to feel cold all over. Suddenly, he put away the joking expression on his face. It seemed that the other party's actions had touched Di Beichen and Yingying's reverse scale. Chapter 36-31. From the looks of it, are you going to fight to the death with them? Of course. Di Beichen raised his head. His handsome and flawless face was filled with fierceness and murderous intent. His wife had always been his reverse scale. No one could touch her. No, they couldn't even think about it. Xiren's lips slowly curled into a sinister smile that was different from before. It seems that what we did in the outer hall wasn't enough. Someone actually dares to have designs on us. Ao Lingxiao looked at the murderous duo in front of him and couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. With your wife's looks, I'm afraid she has a lot of troubles. Troubles? Xiren raised his eyebrows and glanced at Ao Lingxiao. A bachelor like you won't understand. Ao Lingxiao paused. The corner of his lips twitched. Are you mocking me? You'll naturally understand when you have a wife. Di Beichen cut in again. Even though they had already made up their minds, Di Beichen and the others didn't act immediately. They also wanted to see what the other party had planned. Let's go and take a look. Xue Changdong couldn't help but say after checking for a while, and not finding Di Beichen and the other two. Brother Xue, the eight-legged scorpion's nest is not far ahead. It's very dangerous for us to go there now. Fang Tianyi was a little resistant. The eight-legged scorpion's nest was a very terrifying place. Xue Changdong's face was clouded. Nonsense, of course I know it's dangerous. However, if we let them escape today, it will be difficult to take their lives in the future. If they don't die, we won't be able to explain ourselves when we return. After being lectured by Xue Changdong, Fang Tianyi couldn't help but nod. Yes, yes. After seeing Xue Changdong and the others walk past, Di Beichen and the other two stood up. They really have a good plan. The eight-legged bright scorpion's lair is right in front of us and they actually discovered it. If we were to fall into it, we would really die for no reason. When Xiren coldly snorted, the coldness in his eyes growing stronger. Di Beichen looked at the backs of Xue Changdong and the others thoughtfully. It seems that my previous judgment was not wrong. This matter was not done by them, but by someone else. That makes sense. Although Xue Changdong isn't a good person, as far as I know, this guy only cares about his own cultivation in the end. He doesn't care too much about romantic affairs. Moreover, the four of you are already famous in the outer palace. Ordinary people won't take the initiative to become enemies with you, said Ao Lingxiao. Di Beichen's eyes narrowed slightly. His fine and long eyelashes left a shadow on his eyebrows, just like his unfathomable eyes. According to what you said, the person who ordered them to do this should be from the inner palace? Ao Lingxiao chuckled. Xue Changdong's status in the outer palace is not low. The person who can make it difficult for him to explain is at least someone from the inner palace. I wonder who you think of when I say this? Di Beichen's sword-like eyebrows slightly raised. His deep and bright eyes suddenly became clear. I think I know who arranged this. It seems that they really don't want to give up. Xiren's lips curled into a cold and sarcastic smile. His eyes were already filled with snow. Chapter 36-32. We can only slowly settle this score in the future. Di Beichen's voice was gentle, but there was a bone-chilling coldness in it. Duan Huali. He had already warned this guy not to have any improper thoughts. He did not expect that this guy would not restrain himself at all. Instead, he had bribed the cultivators of the outer hall to take their lives. Since that was the case, they were completely on the opposite side. The other party had already sent people to deal with them. If he did not return the favor, it would be inappropriate. Ao Lingxiao's expression changed. He did not expect that in such a short time, Di Beichen and the others had already found out who the enemy was. It seemed that this was going to be another big show. Di Beichen, what do we do now? Xiren turned to look at Di Beichen. We can't go forward. I'm afraid that those guys who didn't fear death and continued to advance will really lose their lives here. Just thinking about the eight-legged bright scorpion's lair, one could imagine that the number of eight-legged bright scorpions would be extremely shocking. There was no other outcome other than death for a mere dozen people. We'll wait here. If those guys come back, we'll throw them back. Di Beichen's eyes were cold as he said in a deep voice. Ao Lingxiao glanced at Di Beichen and said, Then we have to pay attention to the time. If those guys provoke the eight-legged bright scorpions, we have to do our best to escape. Okay. Not long after, Di Beichen and the others heard a cry of surprise from the front. This cry was filled with fear and shock, followed by the fluctuations of a battle. Seeing this, Di Beichen and the others narrowed their eyes. It seemed that the situation was exactly as they had expected. The three of them quietly listened to the fluctuations of the battle. Di Beichen's thin lips opened slightly. These people are really doomed. That was because the ripples from the battle were constantly decreasing, which meant that more and more cultivators were dying. The more cultivators died, the greater the pressure on the remaining cultivators. In this situation, other than trying their best to stall for time, there was nothing they could do to change the final outcome. There's always a price to pay for trying to be a hero. Ao Lingxiao's lips curled into a mocking smile. He usually felt that this kind of guy was the stupidest. At this time, a burst of chaotic and hurried footsteps came from the front. Di Beichen and the other two looked at each other, and the light in their eyes suddenly changed. On their faces there was a cold and chilling smile. Damn it, these eight-legged bright scorpions are actually so fast. Our movements were already concealed enough, but we were still discovered at the first moment. Xue Changdong was running at the front of the group. He was very depressed. He deliberately chased after them to see if Di Beichen and the others were in front, but he didn't expect to attract the attention of the eight-legged bright scorpions. These guys were extremely sharp. Although they were walking beasts, their speed was still very shocking. If they couldn't shake off the eight-legged bright scorpions, it would also bring them great trouble. Most importantly, he didn't see Di Beichen and the others. I wonder where Di Beichen and the others went. We didn't see them at all. Chapter 36-33. I wonder if these guys. While Xue Changdong was speaking, three figures suddenly appeared in front of them. Weren't they Di Beichen and the other two that they were looking for? The three of them are there. At the same time, Fang Tianyi and the others also noticed Di Beichen and the other two. Their faces suddenly turned pale and complicated, and they could not help but feel guilty. Why are they here? We clearly didn't see them before. For a moment, everyone in the team felt a little complicated. Logically speaking, Di Beichen and the others should not have noticed their existence. However, looking at the appearance of Di Beichen and the other two, they actually felt like they had been seen through. If the other party had not seen through them, they would not be standing in front of them so aggressively at this moment. Xue Changdong could not help but be stunned. Thousands of thoughts ran through his mind, and countless ideas appeared in an instant. In the end, he still held on to a fluke mentality and shouted at Di Beichen and the others, "There are 8-legged bright scorpions behind us. Let's leave quickly." He only hoped that Di Beichen and the others had not seen through their conspiracy. As long as Di Beichen and the other two did not know, then they would still have a chance to make a move in the future. "There are 8-legged bright scorpions behind us?" Ziren pretended to panic. "Are there a lot of them?" Looking at Ziren's surprised look, Xue Changdong could not help but feel happy. He then nodded and said, "There are a lot of them. Once we are surrounded, we will lose our lives. Let's quickly find other cultivators to join up with." "So there are a lot of 8-legged bright scorpions," Di Beichen said slowly. He lowered his head slightly, and the corner of his lips suddenly raised into a charming arc. He chuckled. When he raised his head again, his deep and charming eyes suddenly bloomed with a bright light, and his voice followed, "In that case, I am relieved." Xue Changdong and the others looked at Di Beichen in confusion. They did not understand what Di Beichen meant at all. However, in the next second they understood. Di Beichen and the other two's figures suddenly turned into a bolt of lightning, and without any explanation, directly approached them. Seeing this, Xue Changdong and the others could not help but panic. At this point, anyone could feel that the situation was not right. However, they did not understand. Were Di Beichen and the other two not afraid of danger? The 8-legged bright scorpions were not far from where they were, but they still dared to stay here and not leave. The idea of Di Beichen and the others was very simple. They would unexpectedly give the opponent a blow. They didn't need to be fatal, they just needed to throw the opponent to a place close to the 8-legged bright scorpion. In this way, they didn't need to spend too much effort. These 8-footed bright scorpions could help them solve this problem. Bang bang bang! Di Beichen and the other two were extremely fast. Before the other party could react, they had already begun to attack. In just a moment, 3 of the other party's members were kicked to the back. The 3 of them were ambushed, and their brains could not react for a moment. However, in the process of flying, they also understood what kind of situation they would be in when they landed. Immediately, their faces flashed with intense panic. "No!" Frightened and terrified voices rang out in the air, causing Xue Changdong and the others to be even more shocked. Chapter 36-34. At this moment, Xue Changdong was certain that Di Beichen and the others were aware of their scheme, which was why they did what they did. "Di Beichen, the 8-legged bright scorpion is not far behind us. If you fight with us now, it won't be beneficial to you or us." Xue Changdong looked at Di Beichen in front of him, and felt a little nervous. He suddenly felt that Di Beichen was a complete madman. The current situation was extremely dangerous. If they were not careful, all of them would die here. If it were him, even if the opponent was right in front of him, he would not risk his life to fight with the opponent. After all, he could lose his life at any time. "Didn't you deliberately lead us here so that we could face the 8-legged bright scorpion? Isn't it good that I'm fulfilling your wish now?" Di Beichen's thin lips curled slightly. It was a beautiful smile, but it made Xue Changdong's heart turn cold. He had miscalculated. He did not expect Di Beichen and the others to be so sharp. The other cultivators did not notice anything wrong, but Di Beichen and the other two did. From the moment they noticed, his plan had already failed, and he had also fallen into an extremely passive situation. He regretted it. If he had known that things would turn out like this, he would not have taken the risk for those benefits. Even if his status and strength in the outer hall was not bad, offending Di Baichen and the others would not end well. "You're crazy!" Xue Changdong could not help but curse. From Di Baichen's actions, he could tell that the other party wanted to keep him here forever, in this trap that he had designed himself. Faced with Xue Changdong's curses, Di Baichen was very indifferent. "You should have known that you would not have a good ending by scheming against us. Since you deliberately planned to die at the hands of the eight-legged bright scorpion, I'll let you experience it." In the next moment, Di Baichen's attack arrived quickly, not giving his opponent any chance to escape. Originally, Ao Lingxiao had nothing to do with this plot. However, he was temporarily in the same team as Di Baichen and the others. Moreover, he was also involved in this plot. Naturally, he couldn't let it go so easily. Although he was always alone, many people knew that he didn't have a good temper. Otherwise, no one would have dared to provoke him for so long. With this move, Ao Lingxiao's strength was revealed. The cultivators in his hands were quickly kicked back to where the eight-legged bright scorpions were gathered. "Fang Tianyi, let's join hands and get rid of this guy." Xue Changdong's expression was very ugly. His strength had already reached the 7th level of the Purple Realm. He originally thought that it wouldn't be difficult to deal with Di Baichen, but he didn't expect that Di Baichen had also broken through the 6th level of the Purple Realm. This was something he never knew. Thus, he felt that this battle was extremely difficult. He could only find helpers to help him. Otherwise, he might not be able to keep his life. Hearing Xue Changdong's words, Fang Tianyi also nodded. "Okay." Looking at the two people in front of him, the frost in Di Baichen's eyes did not fade. He did not retreat at all and went up to greet them again. Bang, bang, bang! The three figures quickly tangled together. Even if one person was fighting two people, Di Baichen still did not fall into a disadvantage. Chapter 36-35. Bang! Di Baichen's fist landed heavily on Xue Changdong's chest. Suddenly suffering a heavy blow, Xue Changdong could not help but take 2 steps back, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his lips. Tasting the metallic taste in his mouth, Xue Changdong reached out and wiped the corner of his lip. After seeing the dark red bloodstain, his gaze turned gloomy. "You really live up to your reputation. You're only at the 6th level of the Purple Realm, but you're still able to heavily injure me." Even though his expression was calm, the fear in Xue Changdong's eyes could not be dispelled. He already knew that Di Baichen had the ability to fight above his level, but he could not be sure if he did not fight with him personally. Now that he understood, he knew that if he continued to fight with Di Baichen like this, he would definitely not be able to leave safely. Since you've already heard about it, you should be wise not to seek trouble for yourself. Di Baichen's gaze was as cold as a knife, and his voice did not contain any warmth. There was no enmity between him and Xue Changdong, and it was not wise for Xue Changdong to accept benefits to seek trouble in this situation. Xue Changdong withdrew his gaze, and his pale face was filled with annoyance and regret. In the next moment, it suddenly turned into a sinister and resolute expression. "My actions this time were indeed not wise enough, so I won't continue to entangle with you." As soon as he finished speaking, Xue Changdong directly grabbed Fang Tianyi, who was beside him, and suddenly threw him in the direction of Di Baichen. Then, he quickly fled to the other side. Looking at Fang Tianyi, who suddenly rushed towards him, Di Baichen flicked his long sword, lifted his right leg, and kicked Fang Tianyi to the back. "Brother Xue!" Fang Tianyi obviously did not expect that Xue Changdong, who had followed him for a long time, would suddenly betray him. He only understood when he was surrounded by the 8-legged bright scorpions. However, it was too late when he realized this. Xue Changdong's figure had already disappeared without a trace, and the densely packed 8-legged bright scorpions around him made him understand that he would definitely be buried in the belly of these beasts today. Di Baichen turned around and saw Xue Changdong's figure quickly disappearing from his sight. He could not help but frown. He did not expect Xue Changdong to betray his teammate so easily. Baichen, the eight-legged bright scorpions are very close to us. Let's leave quickly. If we continue to stay here, we'll be in danger ourselves. When Ziran walked to Di Baichen's side, Shui Changdong, this kind of guy, directly used his teammates as a scapegoat. I'm afraid no one will believe him in the future. Di Baichen nodded. Let's go. When Ao Lingxiao heard their voices, he immediately turned around and left. The three of them flew away. When they left, they did not try to hide their speed at all. After seeing Ao Lingxiao's speed, Di Baichen and Wen Ziran were relieved. They immediately smiled and said, Ao Lingxiao, your speed is really not bad. They remembered that before Shui Changdong and the others returned, Di Baichen asked Ao Lingxiao about his speed. If speed was not Ao Lingxiao's forte, then they could not let Ao Lingxiao stay and take the risk. Chapter 36-36. Speed is the last resort for escaping. It doesn't matter if my combat power is a little weaker, but I have to be fast. Otherwise, if I can't even outrun others, what's the point? Ao Lingxiao raised his eyebrows. He was obviously very satisfied with his speed. Ziran, who was originally very impressed with Ao Lingxiao's speed, couldn't help but twitch his lips after hearing Ao Lingxiao's words. What you said really makes sense. Di Baichen chuckled. Brother Ao's words are different from others, but they are indeed very practical. If I wasn't good at speed, I'm afraid my life would have been lost. Ao Lingxiao's eyes flashed with a haze, but the smile on his lips suddenly had a hint of self-mockery. Di Baichen and Ziran looked at each other. Ao Lingxiao's appearance clearly showed that he was thinking of the past, and his words were also emotional. Thinking about it, the reason why Ao Lingxiao became like this probably had a lot to do with his past experiences. Ever since she couldn't see Di Baichen and the other two's figures, Bailey Hongzhuang was a little uneasy. Shangguan Yingying didn't care too much about it, but after being affected by Bailey Hongzhuang's mood, she couldn't help but worry. Let's go over there and take a look. The number of cultivators there seems to have decreased a lot. Bailey Hongzhuang pointed ahead and said to Shangguan Yingying beside her. Okay. They didn't know anyone in the female team, and everyone didn't care about their actions. Therefore, no one cared about them leaving the team. However, not long after the two walked out, they suddenly saw a figure quickly rushing in their direction. After taking a closer look, they realized that this person was Shui Changdong. Shui Changdong was obviously a little surprised after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, but when he thought about Di Baichen and the other twos behind him, he quickly rushed over. His plot had been exposed. If he was caught by the other side, with Bailey Hongzhuang's usual style of doing things, he would probably lose his life here. Wasn't it Shui Changdong who left just now? Shangguan Yingying's face was filled with surprise. He should be with his teammates. Why is he alone now? It's really strange. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. I don't know. She didn't have any feelings for Shui Changdong, and after hearing Ao Lingxiao's evaluation of Shui Changdong, she didn't like this person. But from his face is panicked, Shangguan Yingying, and Shangguan Yingying. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking, Baisher's voice suddenly sounded. Master, Di Baichen's aura is approaching, and there are many eight-legged scorpions behind them. As Baisher's voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly surprised. A lot of eight-legged scorpions? White Lion nodded. All of them are eight-legged bright scorpions. Perhaps this is their nest. As a beast king, Shangguan Yingying was very sensitive to the aura of monsters. Are Baichen and the rest in danger? Bailey Hongzhuang quickly asked. No wonder she always had a feeling of uneasiness in her heart. Baichen and the others were really in danger. Chapter 36-37. Roar! In the next moment, White Lion let out a loud roar. The loud roar seemed to shake the entire island. Immediately after, the 8-footed bright scorpions and 6-footed bright scorpions on the new island couldn't help but cry out. However, their voices were filled with obvious fear. The might of a beast king was something that all demonic beasts had to submit to. Di Baichen, who was quickly escaping, couldn't help but light up when he heard the familiar beast roar. That's Baisher's voice. Hong Zhuang and the rest should be in front. When Ziren nodded his head, his gentle and jade-like face flashing with a happy luster, they should be looking for us. After hearing Di Baichen and Shang Guanying's conversation, Ao Lingxiao's face couldn't help but reveal a look of astonishment. This was because he realized that after the roar, the 8-footed bright scorpions that were chasing after them suddenly stopped in their tracks. From the looks of it, they were clearly afraid. The 8-footed bright scorpions were Purple Realm Level 6 demonic beasts. Among the many demonic beasts, the 8-footed bright scorpions were considered to be of an extremely high level. The demonic beast that could make the 8-footed bright scorpions feel fear must be of an extremely high level. Although Master Long had given them decent demonic beasts, these demonic beasts were still young and obviously couldn't have such power. As such, there was only one possibility left: Bailey Hongzhuang's demonic beast. The demonic beast that looked like a lion and a tiger was extremely famous in the Outer Palace. In the battle back then, this demonic beast's performance was extremely shocking. Therefore, all the disciples in the Outer Palace knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had a demonic beast that was extremely powerful. However, from the current situation, everyone seemed to have underestimated this demonic beast. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying walked forward. Not long after, they saw 3 figures that were flying towards them. After seeing their faces clearly, the 2 of them couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Following that, a smile appeared on their faces. "Baichen, you're back," Bailey Hongzhuang called out softly, her gentle voice full of affection. Di Baichen nodded slightly and walked quickly to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. His broad and slender hands were already holding the latter's slender and fair hand. "Why are there only the 2 of you? Aren't you with the team behind you?" "Hongzhuang was very worried about your safety when she saw you missing, so we left the team to look for you," Shangguan Yingying said. "So that's how it is." Di Baichen and the other 2 suddenly understood. Bailey Hongzhuang looked up at Di Baichen and frowned. "I heard from Baisher that you were being chased by the 8-legged bright scorpion and barged into its lair?" "This is a conspiracy," Di Baichen said slowly. "Have you seen Xue Changdong?" Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying looked at each other. "Just now we saw Xue Changdong running out in a panic. After seeing us, he was stunned for a moment and then disappeared. The reason why we were chased by the 8-legged bright scorpion was because we fell into Xue Changdong's trap." Ziren sighed. "However, this guy didn't get anything good out of it. His teammates have all fallen." "What do you mean?" Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes darkened. "We don't have any grudges with Xue Changdong. Why would he find trouble with you?" Chapter 36-38. The group of 5 continued to move forward until they found a safe place before stopping. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying also understood the reasons behind this. In that case, the person who sent Xue Changdong should be Duan Huali? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes revealed a trace of coldness, and her clear and bright phoenix eyes were quietly covered with a layer of haze. Di Baichen nodded. "Other than him, I can't think of any other possible candidate. Xue Changdong is already an outstanding person in the outer hall. It's almost impossible for the cultivators in the outer hall to order him around. Only the disciples of the inner hall can do this." Even though they didn't get a definite answer from Xue Changdong, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 were already incomparably certain. They knew very few people in the entire inner hall. Speaking of opponents, only Duan Huali was their opponent. Moreover, Xue Changdong only wanted to kill Di Baichen and Wen Ziren this time, but he left Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying behind. His intention couldn't be more obvious. "This Duan Huali, I've already made it very clear before. I didn't expect him to still be so persistent." Bailey Hongzhuang frowned, and her beautiful and delicate face was filled with disgust. From the first time she saw Duan Huali, She felt that this person was arrogant and conceited. It was really difficult to leave a good impression on others. Duan Huali's intentions were also very obvious, but she clearly rejected them. Later, when they were in the outer hall, they didn't see Duan Huali causing any trouble, so she didn't take this matter too seriously. She didn't expect that Duan Huali would actually find Duan Huali to deal with them. This move was really well planned. If Duan Huali himself appeared, they would definitely be on guard. However, Duan Huali found someone who had no enmity with them to do this, so they wouldn't think of this point. In this way, the success rate would be greatly increased. If it weren't for Di Baichen and the other two's intuition today, they would have fallen into this trap. In my opinion, Duan Huali's actions are not only for you, but also because he hates Baichen. Last time at the teleportation array, Baichen didn't give him any face. Ziren pondered and said. Shangguan Yingying secretly said, "This Duan Huali is really despicable." Ao, who originally didn't understand the situation, "I didn't expect it, this person is actually Duan Huali, this person is quite a bit of the inner hall. So what if he has some strength? Since he took the initiative to find trouble, we won't be afraid." Ziren didn't mind. Based on the current situation, Duan Huali was indeed stronger than them. However, along the way, most of the cultivators who died at their hands were stronger than them. Ao Lingxiao waved his hand. "I didn't say you would be afraid, but it will be more troublesome to deal with. However, since this guy came up with such a sneaky plan, he doesn't want to make a move openly. You still have a lot of time to slowly deal with this matter. Now that guy Xue Changdong ran away, I think he won't dare to appear in front of us again." Ziren shrugged. "It's best if I don't see him, otherwise I will teach him a lesson." Chapter 36-39. For the next few days, Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 5 hunted monster beasts on this new island. Just as everyone had predicted, after the 6-footed bright scorpions were killed, only the 8-footed bright scorpions appeared. Therefore, everyone's clearing speed slowed down, and the number of cultivators who died and were injured continued to increase. During this time, they also tried to find Xue Changdong's figure, but Xue Changdong seemed to have disappeared, and they couldn't even find a trace of him. "We haven't heard any news about Xue Changdong these past few days. Could he have left this new island?" Shangguan Yingying frowned. Bailey Hongzhuang muttered. "It's very likely, if he is still on this new island, once we find him, we will definitely not show mercy. Now that he is alone and has no helpers, he definitely won't dare to face us, so leaving is the best choice. I'm afraid he has already gone to Duan Huali to seek his protection." Di Baichen's low and magnetic voice suddenly sounded, and Bailey Hongzhuang and the others heard it. As soon as these words came out, everyone couldn't help but look at each other. This was indeed the most likely situation. After Xue Changdong escaped, he immediately left the new island. Ever since he really fought with Di Baichen, he understood that he was not their opponent at all. Now that his teammates of many years had died, he was the only one left, and he didn't dare to continue to stay on this island. He didn't expect that the plan that he thought was foolproof would fail like this, and at this moment, he was even more regretful. Thinking about the current situation, he really went for wool and came back shorn. The most important thing was that in the future, it would be very difficult for him to not encounter Di Baichen and the others in the outer hall. Li Shengkai and the others had offended Di Baichen and the others before, and as a result, they were directly killed in front of Master Long. He was really worried that Di Baichen and the others would come back and attack again like before, then he didn't have the confidence to survive. The only thing he could do now was to look for Peng Kairue. Only if Peng Kairue was willing to protect him would he be able to continue staying in the outer hall. Otherwise, he would most likely die. Ever since Peng Kairue and Duan Huali had given this task to Xue Changdong, they hadn't been in a hurry to go to the training grounds. Instead, they had been staying in the inner hall, waiting for news. On this day, when Peng Kairue saw Xue Changdong appear, A hint of joy appeared on his face. Presumably, Xue Changdong had come to tell him the good news. However, as Xue Changdong gradually approached and he saw Xue Changdong's expression, he felt that something was wrong. Senior brother Peng. When Xue Changdong saw Peng Kairui, he felt as if he had seen his own family. I wasn't able to complete my mission successfully this time. Hearing this, the look in Peng Kairui's eyes changed a little. He continued, "What exactly is going on?" I still underestimated the strength of Di Beichen and the others. Xue Changdong slowly told Peng Kairui everything that had happened. This was originally a foolproof plan, but I didn't expect them to see through it. Now, my teammates are all dead, and I'm the only one who returned.